Hey y'all, I've been kind of gone for a while with book reviews. I read Harry Potter over the summer, so that's where my time was going. I decided I was not going to book review those. There's just too much. I would have needed to do a review for every single chapter. And then I went through, backtracking again. After I finished book 7, and I finished on September 1st, which was really exciting, I then didn't read for about a week because when you finish Harry Potter for the millionth time, you kind of go through a phase where no book is going to live up to any sort of expectation. But I just finished reading The Chemist by Stephenie Meyer. I didn't even actually know that this book existed. My grandma gave it to me for my birthday, and I finally got to it. So backstory with Stephenie Meyer. When I was in high school, I loved her Twilight series. And then a few years down the road after high school, I realized that they're not actually that well written. But in contrast to that, I really like her book, The Host. And I think that she just writes differently because Twilight, she was directed towards young adult, and The Host, she has publicized as an adult novel. And I think that for her, that truly changes her mindset of the way she writes. So The Chemist is also an adult novel. Obviously anyone can read it, whatever, but it's not going to be in the YA section, right? And it took about 60 pages for me to actually fully get into the book. I'm going to do this with no spoilers. This is going to be a spoiler-free review to get you interested in the book rather than discuss a whole bunch of things. So basically, it follows this girl who is a chemist, clearly, that's the title of the book, and she has been working for the U.S. government as an interrogator a lot of times on terrorist cases and things like that. But she's now on the run, and she's kind of trying to figure out why. She knows it's because in some way she knows too much of something, but she hasn't been able to narrow down to what case it was that the government then decided, oh, she knows too much, whatever. So she's on the run at the beginning, and it follows her as the government recontacts her and wants her to do this new job, and so then she gets involved in this thing, and then it has to, basically she's trying to survive, because there are people who want her dead for what she knows from past cases and past interrogations. It took a while for me to get into it because not that it was slow and not that it wasn't interesting, it just wasn't for me. It wasn't something I was interested in. But then the pace did pick up, and like I said, it wasn't slow at the beginning, at least I didn't think so. But the pace then did pick up, and it picked up a lot, and so then I got more interested in it, and then I loved the rest of it. I was way intrigued throughout the rest of it. Parts were too violent for me, and a little bit too graphic. I don't do well with violence. This is going to sound ridiculous. I don't do well with scary. I don't do horror. I don't even really like suspenseful things. And at parts, this book was even too suspenseful for me. If I was reading at night and it was dark outside, it got me all anxious. That's probably just me. I have a really overactive imagination. Okay, so I do recommend this book. It was incredibly unique. I was very impressed with Stephenie Meyer's ability to write this. It's just so different. And maybe it's not different from other stories in this type of genre, but I don't read those. So to me, it really stood out. But for her, I also was impressed that she could write this. Totally different than Twilight, totally different than The Host. So I was impressed with her ability. The editing was also pretty well done, which I always appreciate. There were about 3 instances, though, throughout this story where I kind of was like, that wasn't written well because it threw me as the reader for a loop, and I figure out what's going on, but it just was poorly written. And I'm going to give you an example that is not going to be a spoiler, okay? So, there's a scene where the main girl, who we know in the book most of the time by Alex, but she has multiple names because she has all these fake identities. So I'm going to call her Alex in this example. Alex is talking to another key character, and it's just the two of them, and they're making a lot of progress in figuring out who is trying to kill her and why they're trying to kill her and what it is that she knows that has made her a problem, right? Through this discussion, they're making a lot of progress. And then this third character, who is also very important, he walks in, and he had been in the kitchen. He walks into the other room where they've been working on things, and he says, "Is this room soundproof?" Well, I sit there, and I know that people are trying to kill them and trying to find them, and so I immediately thought that he had seen someone, like, out a window, and he was trying to warn them, "You're saying confidential stuff and people can hear you." Well, no. It takes a few lines, and then it turns out that no, he's been calling their name from the kitchen for them to come eat breakfast. And I was like, not that... Just the line, "Is this room soundproof?" was not a good call right there, because of the intensity of the conversation they were having and because of ways that their security had been breached in the past in other scenes. And so that's the one I'm going to tell you about because it gives you no spoilers. But there were two other scenes that I felt like were similar in the way that the phrasing her characters use or terms or whatever doesn't fit. And like I said, it threw me for a loop, and I thought it was going to turn into this big shootout scene, whatever, run for your lives sort of thing, because that's the type of story this is. And no, he just wants them to come eat some pancakes or something. It was not a strong moment in the writing, and it could have been handled a lot better. So that was a downside of that. Like I said, there were 3 that really stood out to me that were like that. Otherwise, the characters are deep. Definitely not shallow, flat characters. There are some dogs, and I loved that because I love dogs, and it was just fun. The dogs have good personalities, and that part was enjoyable. When Stephenie Meyer gets into the sciences and the governmental stuff, she does it in a way that is clear to the reader, even though I know nothing about chemicals and science and blending things and making new drugs and stuff like that. She does it in a way that a typical reader can easily get through it and understand and not be confused. And that's what you want in books like this. You don't want it to be rocket science. You want to be able to write to a level that any reader can follow your storyline, and she does that very well in this book. Yeah, it was very, very intriguing. I did like it a lot. So I recommend it. The Chemist, that's the hardback cover. It was really good. And her acknowledgments page at the end, that was kind of fun to look at too. She talked to a lot of people. She talked to government people and scientists and doctors and all these different people to make this book work, to be believable. It was well done. It was really well done. So I do recommend it. If you've read it, I'd love to see your comments and see what you thought about the whole thing. Like I said, violent, tiny, tiny bit of swearing. Not very much. Maybe 3 or 4 words total, and they're super scattered throughout the book, so didn't faze me. The violence is where you might be a little bit hesitant. If that bothers you like it bothers me. There were a few times where I was like, ugh, too much. And not that it's horribly graphic, but it is a little bit graphic. That's my only warning. That's the only thing that I think you need to be aware of going into this book, if for some reason that makes you queasy or hesitant. Anyway, I do recommend it. The Chemist by Stephenie Meyer. Let's see, when was this published? I know it was somewhat recently. Let me look really quick. 2016. So, anyway, enjoy and keep reading.